All right, ladies and gents, so we are about to do a very quick breakdown of a striker fired handgun. Remember, striker fired is when the hammer is actually inside of the slide here. This is not a beginner's breakdown. You need to have a little bit of basic firearms knowledge. However, you should be able to walk through the process on most striker fire guns. Some of them will be a little bit different, like Glocks have a couple of nipples up here that you need to pull down on, a couple of tabs. And something like the Smith & Wesson Shield 2.0, I think, has the actual slide lock lever a little bit more forward. However, again, the fundamentals are basically going to be the same. So first thing we need to do is make sure there's no ammunition anywhere in the room whatsoever. Make sure that that stuff is gone. Next, you're going to get a high firm pistol grip, maintaining the weapon safety rules, point it in a safe direction, and then you're going to push, pull, and lock that slide to the rear. Remember to push up, hold up on that slide stop until you get all the way back, let it go a little bit, you feel that pressure, and then that resistance here is going to be what holds the slide back. Once we're there, we need to make sure that there's no magazine inserted and then no round in the chamber. You can't see any brass in there. So this weapon right here is cleared. Make sure that you clear your weapon, ladies and gents, because if you have ammunition around or if you have a round in the chamber and you pull this trigger, you're going to shoot yourself, possibly somebody else, and we don't want to mess around with that. Now that we have the slide lock to the rear and we know that the weapon is unloaded, what we're going to do is we're going to take the slide lock lever and push down on it. This now unlocks the slide. So for some handguns, when you send the slide forward, it might fly right off the gun. So make sure that you have good positive control, which we're about to do in here in a second. And then for people, if you have like a Glock, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to hold down on those two tabs in the front, hold down on them as you send that slide home. I'm not going to send my slide home because it's going to come straight off. But for Glocks, when you send that slide home, that's when you could release those tabs and then you're going to pull the trigger. This is again why it's so important to make sure that the weapon is condition 4, completely unloaded. And that's what we call the Glock specials, when you accidentally shoot yourself while disassembling your firearm. Now, if you have something like a SIG, or I think the Shield 2.0 is the same way as a SIG, I could be wrong. But what you're going to do is you're going to get positive control of that slide. You are going to push down on that slide stop, and then you're going to just glide it right off the top of the firearm. Glide it right off the top of the firearm. Next, you're going to take the spring here. So this is the front of the gun. This is the barrel and the muzzle. See here, there's our front sight tip. You're going to push that spring inward towards the front and then slightly lift up on it. Now, for some handguns like the Springfield XD45, for example, that is a thick, heavy spring. When you push in on it, if you lose control, it will go shooting out. So make sure you maintain good positive control of the spring. If it's something small like this, like on a 9mm, you usually don't have to worry about that for most 9mm. However, there are some other ones out there like CZ, I think, where it's going to be a pretty strong spring, so you got to be careful that you don't let that thing go poking you in your eye. Next is we're going to take the barrel out. So now we're going to flip the slide right side up, and then we're going to just jiggle the barrel a little bit here, grab it by what I call the boots, jiggle it a little bit, and then you're just going to slide it out so that it comes out of the gun. And then when we're all said and done, you'll have these 4 main components for a field strip. You'll have the lower receiver, which is the pistol grip, and then the bottom part of the firearm with the trigger assembly group. You'll have the slide, which is a part of the upper receiver. You'll have the spring, and then you'll have the barrel. Make sure that you spray it down, you lubricate it, you scrub it pretty well, and that you use things like hard wooden Q-tips to get off any of the residual carbon. As you see on my fingers here, that's what we're getting rid of, is this black carbon. And then focus on the areas of friction. Remember, this is a machine, and so the smoother that it runs, the more proficient it's going to be. Also, make sure that you're always checking your springs. There is some carbon buildup that takes place on these things. Or like mine right here has some gunk in it, probably from when I was doing some outside shooting. So make sure that you clean these springs as well. Run a rag through them, scrape or scrub them really good. And then when we reassemble the gun, we're just going to repeat the process. So flip the barrel upside down, or the slide upside down, take the barrel, put it in, and then lock it back. It should fit into place, and it's like kind of like magnetic almost, to where it maintains its position. That's how you know that you have it in a good spot. Take your spring, make sure that you know what the front and back side of your spring is. Some manufacturers will put a little bit of like paint here so you know what's the back side of the spring. you're going to put the spring into this receptacle right here. Put it in, and then you're going to make sure that you get the spring to sit down on this little half moon right there. This right here is the half moon that I'm talking about, half moon step. Make sure that it's all the way seated down in there. Then you're going to flip it right side back up, and you're going to align these grooves here with these grooves on your handgun so that it should fit perfectly just like this. Now watch out if you have this little guy sticking up, push that dude back down, and then you should be able to just come right back on here. Now you're going to push, pull all the way to the rear, lock it to the rear, and then, so for the SIG, I'm going to re-engage that lock lever, that slide lock lever, and it automatically sends it forward. It doesn't do that for all the guns, but just be aware, just as such, that's what's supposed to happen. Now, we're going to perform a functions check. Functions check is where you lock the slide to the rear, it should stay to the rear. Send it home, it should go home no problems. If your weapon has a safety, put the weapon on safe, aim, and attempt to fire. It should not fire. Take the weapon off safe, aim, attempt to fire, and it should fire. Keep holding the trigger back. Do not release that trigger. That firing pin dropping right there is proper function. You keep holding the trigger back. Push, pull, release while still holding that trigger back. Slowly release the trigger and listen for the trigger reset. Bam. And that is how you know that you have a properly reassembled firearm. A functions check was all good to go, and you're ready to rock and roll. So let me know if you have any questions on assembly, disassembly, and cleaning your weapon system. I'm more than happy to help you out.